Hello and welcome to The Homemade Songwriter. My name is Austin, and in today's video we're going to be talking about how to overcome your fear of putting your music out there. Alright, so you've been making music for a while and you finally arrived at the point we all hope to get to when making music, releasing your first project to the public. But along with that desire comes the inevitable wave of fear that people are not going to like your music. Every artist that's ever put out music has had to deal with this on some level, and most of us continue to constantly wrestle with it even after we've put out projects that have been well received by the public. So how do we deal with it? The following is just some practical advice that I've been given over the years, as well as some helpful experiences that I've had that will hopefully be helpful to you as well. Let's dive in. Tip number 1, diagnose your imposter syndrome. Imposter syndrome. This is a term that gets thrown around in the artist community quite a bit, and if you're unfamiliar with it, it simply refers to that feeling you get like you're just not good enough to release your art out into the world. Like you're pretending to be a professional, but in reality, everyone's going to see right through you as soon as you release your projects and then judge you for being an amateur. Or even if the product sounds as professional as possible, in reality you're just tricking people into thinking that you've got it all together, when in reality you don't have the skills necessary to be taken seriously, and therefore you're an imposter. The worst thing about it is that it deters so many of us from ever even putting our stuff out in the first place. If I had $1 for every time that I've experienced this throughout the last 10 plus years that I've been making music, I would have about $1 million more than I've ever gotten from streaming royalties. Something about the vulnerability of putting out our own music, especially if it's lyrically driven and honest songwriting, makes us feel like we're only pretending to know what we're doing. It's like, here's this thing that I've made that I've poured my heart and soul into, but because it honestly reflects how I feel or my individual taste in music, it must suck, right? But we managed to discount all the hundreds and thousands of hours that we've put into practicing and honing our skills to create something. So how do we alleviate this? Firstly, give it a name. Recognizing that literally anyone and everyone who's ever put out art or music, among a lot of other things, has felt this and has thought the same things that you're thinking right now can help you dial in your insecurities about your product. Diagnosing that many of the fears you have about your music can be attributed to imposter syndrome can help you think clearly and critically about your project while still making music that you really like and not trying to please everyone or sound like someone else. Secondly, remember that everyone had to start somewhere. There was a point where Jimi Hendrix couldn't play the guitar. There was a point where John Lennon and Paul McCartney were just two dorky kids with bowl cuts who never dreamed that they would write a song like Yesterday. Just because you haven't arrived at the style or talent level that you want to be at doesn't mean that you won't get there someday. And one of the best ways to pursue that goal is to let the rest of the world hear what you're working on. Tip number 2. Start small. When you're thinking about releasing your music in some format, be it a single or an album or a YouTube video or a podcast or whatever your preferred medium is, it's important to keep your goals realistic and reasonable. There's no need to try and release your magnum opus on your very first try, and there's definitely no need to dump thousands and thousands of dollars into studio time or producers or studio musicians, especially if you're just starting to get your feet wet. If you go in expecting too much, you'll only wind up disappointed. Many of us artists have a hard time keeping our perfectionism at bay, especially if it's our first project and it's our baby. But here's the thing. The first thing you release is probably going to sound like exactly what it is. Your first effort. And the best way to learn is by doing. So, focus on bringing your vision to life, but keep your expectations reasonable. Even if the production isn't state-of-the-art, but the music is good, you can be proud of the finished product when it sounds like you and it conveys the message that you're trying to create. There's always room to grow on the next one. Look at this initial phase as testing the water. What do you like most about the process? Is it the writing? Is it the recording? Is it playing shows live? Is it promoting it on social media? Taking a small project that didn't require a ton of money or an act of Congress to complete and then analyzing how you felt about the process from start to finish can help you decide which medium you might like best to pursue the next time around. Don't be afraid to call in favors. Now, I'm certainly not advocating for offering experience to your producer or musician friends. Don't be that person. But there is a reasonable middle ground when you're first getting started that, if you have a friend that you think can help you and won't charge you an arm and a leg, it's okay to respectfully ask for that. Even if they say they can't record for or with you for a reasonable price, they might be able to point you in the direction of someone who can. By the same token, be open to returning the favor by offering whatever skills you bring to the table for their projects. In my experience, especially when you're first getting started, music works best when it's operating as a community. Choose your release medium carefully. Free platforms like SoundCloud are a great resource for uploading your music for public consumption without having to invest in a digital distributor or some kind of subscription service. However, if you're trying to go the artist route and you think you have a product that's worth investing in, you can always, for a small fee, go through companies like Ditto or DistroKid to have your music uploaded onto streaming platforms like Spotify or Apple Music. Just try to pick a proportionate release method to the amount of quality you were able to invest in. There's nothing wrong with workshopping your sound on free platforms for a while until you feel ready to launch as a more mainstream brand. Tip number 3, open mic it. Okay, hear me out. I can make an entire video about the benefit of open mics. I know the idea of performing in front of a live audience can be scary, and you might not even feel ready. However, if you want to talk about a low-risk, high-reward scenario that's guaranteed to hone your music and help you soft launch songs before you have to invest in a full production recording, open mics. I can't even tell you how many open mics I've played brand new songs during in order to test them out in front of a live audience and get some feedback before I take it to the next stage. And guess what? I can guarantee that nobody who attended any of those open mics has any recollection of me playing my most mediocre songs. If I came out the gate with something super memorable and catchy, there's a chance they hung on to that memory for a while, but worst case scenario is the song flops and they move on to the next one. It's like low stakes karaoke, except unlike if you were to blow it on a karaoke rendition of Don't Stop Believing, if you mess up or forget the words, the only person who knows the song is you. And if you play it cool and cover for it, no one will know the difference. Plus, you get the benefit of playing live in front of a non-biased audience without the pressure of trying to book and play a solo or full band show. So, if you're dealing with fear of investing in and releasing your music, take comfort in the fact that there's a certain anonymity to open mics. And unless you come out and just blow the doors off with some amazing song that everyone's begging you to record and release afterwards, which, by the way, should totally seal the deal on whether or not you should release your music in the first place, it's not like anyone's going to make this mental note to not like your music should they get a chance to hear a recorded version of it at some point. Also, bring a couple buddies along to support you and potentially play if they're musicians as well. I mean, either way, you'll be grateful for the applause and for the feedback when you're done. Most cities have at least one bar or restaurant that hosts a weekly open mic, so you can just keep going back until you feel like you've workshopped your music to your satisfaction. Tip number 4, make it a group effort. No one likes to be told what they're doing wrong, but sometimes it's necessary. It refines us and it helps us grow as artists. And plus, it'll boost your confidence when you've agreed upon what works and what doesn't work about the project you're considering taking on. After all, 2 heads are better than 1, right? So, don't be afraid to bring in outside opinions from trusted friends and family. Encourage them to be honest but kind about their feedback to help you refine your music. After all, it's easier to hear that your song drags on too long or is too wordy from your best friend than from an independent music reviewer after you release the project. Be self-critical but with purpose. We as artists already have a tendency to be overly hard on ourselves, and if you dwell on only what you think is terrible about your product, you'll never break out of the fear that you're currently in about whether or not to release your music. Plus, if you aren't your own internal biggest fan, you'll never be able to convince anybody else to be your fan as well. Only be critical to the level you need to be productive when you're workshopping with a friend or a peer. It's good to have a sounding board to bounce your ideas and even your insecurities off of, because 9 times out of 10, the thing that you're thinking disqualifies your music from sounding professional never even crossed their mind. Go with your gut. And if you hear any constructive criticism during this phase, be open to it and willing to refine the music, or able to defend why it works. Either way, you'll walk out feeling more confident about the artistic choices you've made. Tip number 5, get it out there for yourself, not for others. If you leave this video with nothing else, take this one to heart. You're the artist and the songwriter, so make your music for you first. No one has your voice or your unique experiences, and if you have a story to tell or a vision, it's important to focus on bringing that vision to life, not on what you think other people want to hear. Yes, be open to constructive criticism, and yes, try to make the highest quality content possible, but don't obsess over trying to please everyone because it's a fool's game. If you're dealing with fear over getting your music out there, try to keep in mind that art is worth making for the sake of it existing, and your audience or niche will find you. The most successful artists out there stuck to their guns and followed their vision, and as a result created something unique and original, and you can do the same. Look at Chris Stapleton. He was a songwriter in Nashville for like 10 years before mainstream success found him, but when he released his debut album Traveler, his unique style and voice just took the world by storm, and now he's one of the most recognizable artists out there today. Other people can criticize and complain all they want, but to paraphrase Teddy Roosevelt, it is not the critic who counts. not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles or how the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, who at the best in the end knows the triumph of high achievement, and who at the worst, if he fails, at least fails while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who neither know victory nor defeat. I don't think I could follow that up with anything more inspiring, so I guess that's all for today. Question of the day, who's an artist who inspires you, and what, in your opinion, makes them unique? Also, if you're having a hard time getting the creative juices pumping and you need a little kickstart, click the link in the description. We'll send you 30 free songwriting prompts to jumpstart your creativity and get you writing. If you write all 30 songs, you'll have the same number of new songs as cats have teeth. Really. Alright, that's all for this one, so keep writing and we'll see you in the next one.